So whenever people go, what was the first or when did you?
Yeah.
I don't have a one. It's never been. I laughed so much in the beginning when you're like, it feels like you do the most. I have been doing the most my whole life. On my funeral tombstone and be like, Kerry was great. She did the most. The most.
First I got your voicemail, then I got you. We can meet in person or maybe on Zoom. So tell me what's your genre, tell me what do you do? I'd like to know the things that specifically make you.
Hello, I'm Tim Barnes. You are the genre, and in each episode of this show, I ask someone about the first genres that inspired them, the first crafts that they pursued, and how they feel about those pursuits now. In this episode, I'm talking to Kerry Coddett, someone who I think, as of now, might have the most genre-defying career of anyone I've talked to. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the podcast, left a nice comment, gave it a nice review wherever you're listening. It goes a long way. And for those who haven't, maybe this will be the one that finally convinces you to wiggle your thumb from the left to the right all the way to 5 stars at that little section at the bottom of... I already got myself tired. You know what I mean. As you may have noticed, half of this show is about meeting new people, and the other half is about catching up with some of my favorite people from past places I've worked at. Kerry and I met while staffed on Wyatt Cenac's HBO series called Wyatt Cenac's Problem Areas. I was a web producer. She was a staff writer. But all of the things that make Kerry Coddett cannot be contained in that job title alone. Most recently, she was in the unique position of being both a story editor and recurring guest star on the Showtime series Flatbush Misdemeanors. But before turning to comedy as her outlet, Kerry was a fashion designer and stylist who made custom designs for Jay-Z. She is also the founder of Kwanzaa Crawl, an annual New York City community event that in 2019 brought in over $500,000 in one day for local Black-owned businesses. And what if on top of that, I also told you she's a poet, a rapper, and a dancer? How is it possible for one person to contain all of those things? You'll find out in this groundbreaking interview with Kerry Coddett. Oh, and disclaimer, there's a few moments where you might hear a dog barking in the background, but it's not too distracting, I promise. A lot of people end up channeling their lives through a pretty singular path, maybe one or two things, max. But you, Kerry, I feel like are constantly doing the most things, but at the same time, appears to be doing it effortlessly. Is it effortless? Like, I've heard you describe yourself as a Jane of all trades. I know that you perhaps still do fashion. You have both acted in and risen up the ranks of writing to being a story editor for the same show that, that you're acting in. You are one of the best stand-up comedians. You know, sometimes I had this where, like, when I first started getting writing jobs, I was like, okay, stand-up is getting worse because I'm trying to figure out how to do this efficiently, navigate this space. But you somehow seem to do it all at, 90 to 100%, I will say, accuracy.
Oh, that's so lovely.
So, how do you do this? Maybe that'll be something we get to in this conversation. But, how do you feel doing all this? Are you following your in-the-moment interests, or is this sort of a security blanket for you doing all these things?
I think that I've always been driven to tell a story. So I always start with a story first and what I feel like I need to express. And I just naturally intuit what form that goes through. So like whether it's fashion design, like when I was in high school, I started my first fashion line and it was just a t-shirt company and it was very simple. My t-shirt said, "F the police." They said, "F Bush." They said, "F milk, got ganja."
Well, it was the Kerry series. Is that the right?
Yes, it was three of them had on it. And then one was "Jesus is Black, get over it." And those are my shirts. And I started wearing them. And then people were like, where can I buy it? And so I started selling them. And my comedy career is kind of the same way. It's like when I have an idea or something that I want to express, it's like, is this a stand-up joke? Is this a short? Is this a sketch? Is this a TV series? Like, what does it want to be? And then I just create it based on that.
That feels like the smartest thing in the world. It's taken me years to reach that point where it's like, doing primarily comedy and focused on stand-up for the most part of my career, if that's a good word to put on it. So many things like felt like it had to be channeled into that, like specifically just stand-up or sketch.
Yeah.
And now I've woken up to this, like, okay, I have this idea. What form is honestly suited for? Is it a short story? Is it a short film? Is it a sketch?
Right.
You know what I mean? Is it a feature film? And it's amazing that you had that from the beginning. I feel like, I guess most people have that at the beginning, but that stayed with you throughout your career.
Yeah. It's interesting because for a long time, I felt like I was torn between so many different things. Like, I also used to be a professional dancer and a choreographer. And so that's the one thing that I think that I gave up professionally. That I was like, all right, girl, you're not about to be going to 5 dance classes a week. You're not, you got sciatica on both sides. You got piriformis. You got flat feet. It's like, you should just dance for fun. And then they created TikTok. So there's a lane where if you want to around and dance and have fun, you can still do that. But it doesn't mean that because you are good at something and because it brings you joy, that it needs to be the thing that you make money off of. And sometimes if you try to make your career off of it, it becomes less fun.
Yeah.
It's like, now this is a job. So
yeah. You mentioning the dancing reminded me that I barely scratched the surface of the things that you do, because online I've seen like, oh, Kerry's officiating a wedding. Kerry is...
I sure did. I am an ordained minister.
You've got, you created this thing called Kwanzaa Crawl. It's just incredible. Like, I can see you running for office possibly at some point.
Please do not put that on me. I refuse. Do not wish that on me. I want nothing to do with that.
So rewinding a bit, what would you say is the first genre that called out to you when you were a kid?
The first thing I ever wanted to do was be an actor.
An actor, okay.
Yeah. So when I was like 3, it was like acting and dance. And so musical theater, I guess. And that was like when I was 3 and 4. And then right after that, I just started writing. It wasn't like I was 3 and reading monologues. So I would just like create characters and write little short stories and sketches. And then it's so interesting. Looking back now, I realize that I've been a writer this whole time. I've been a lot of things, but the writing is the thing that shows up the most for me. Like, I used to be a rapper. I did spoken. So it started out like in junior high school with short stories. And then I learned how to do spoken word. And then I was like, oh, spoken word is like rap with a beat, and rap is cooler. So I was like, oh, I got bars. I'm about to be a rapper. And then I realized that my raps were funny. Like, it was like set up and punch. And I was like, this is a joke. And so I went from rapping to like doing music video parodies. And so I started comedy through music, through like Weird Al Yankovic style. Then I started doing sketches. And then sketches led to improv. And then improv led to stand-up. And then stand-up led to writing TV shows. And so it's just like the same, just in different 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, 30.
Yeah, you can visualize the family tree of all of these things that you do. That's fascinating. I mean, was it difficult, or was it in some ways a tough decision to switch from doing earnest spoken word and rap to doing parodies of it? Did you feel like you were sort of giving up on a certain end of it, or do you still kind of flow within these different genres?
I still flow within those different genres. I'm always going to be musical. I'm working on a one-woman show now. And so I'm choreographing it. So there's dancing elements, there's musical elements. So I'm writing those songs. I'm writing the story. I'm performing in it. I'm doing different characters and accents. And so I think I'm my happiest when I don't have to choose, because I don't have to choose. I don't got to choose.
You don't. And I feel like in a lot of ways, you embody what just what's the most accurate way to say it? Just 70 years ago, maybe 60, even 50 years ago, was just thought of as being an entertainer.
Right.
And I feel like it's a recent thing for us to kind of silo out the individual parts of it. Like there was a time where like Sammy Davis Jr. knows how to tap dance, knows how to sing, knows how to act, knows how to do all these things. And now, we're kind of getting out of this phase, it seems like, where the expectation is that you kind of have a singular label.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Like even if you look at the Kanye's, for all whatever people feel about him, but the Kanye's of the world, or the Pharrells, like everyone was like, you should only do one thing. And he's like, nah, I don't have to just make beats. I can also rap. I can be a designer. Like my creativity is not limited to this one lane. So I very much identify with the psychosis that it takes to let your creativity spill over into all these buckets.
Yeah. And you're from Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, born and raised, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry, I have to do that. I have to. God forbid they give me an Emmy or an Oscar, because I know I'm going to be like, Brooklyn, blah, blah. It's going to be ridiculous.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but we met, I feel like this is where we met, when I was a web producer on season 1 of Wyatt Cenac's HBO show Problem Areas. And there's one specific moment that I think about where it's like, I was like, oh, Kerry does not play. She means business.
Uh-oh. What was it? Lord have mercy.
It was a very subtle thing. It was like one of the first meetings where like they're just like kind of going over stuff. And I remember I was sitting next to you and you were just like taking notes, or it was like tomorrow we want ideas about this or something. I just casually turned over and you saw my head turn and you moved your notepad. And it was like one of those things where like, I'm not taking offense to it. It actually made me respect you. Like,
like mind your business. I don't know.
Like it was
mind
like
your business. Keep your eyes on your own paper, bro. What were you looking at, Tim?
No, I that's truly, I was just like, oh, I wonder what she's writing. I don't know what it was, but
exactly,
like,
he was being nosy.
But I know. I was like, you have been through enough things where you know that this is just something you have to do to protect your IP, I guess.
That's so funny. I'm so happy that was what you said, because you could have said so many other things.
Do you feel like the way that you kind of flow through different mediums, different activities, does Brooklyn have some effect on your doing that?
It's hard to say, right? Because there are so many different parts of me that make me me. And so I'd like to imagine that if I was born anywhere else, I wouldn't be who I am. But I'm also Caribbean. So having the parents that I have and growing up in a Caribbean neighborhood, in a Caribbean community in Brooklyn, is very much a part of how I see the world and how I approach things and how I reject certain things. So I don't have the exact answer, but whenever I could give credit to being from Brooklyn, sure. I love it. Yes.
I guess what I'm really asking is like, it seems like being in Brooklyn and growing up in Brooklyn gave you access to people doing so many different things. That's not something that a lot of people have access to. And it seems like that may have given you like, oh, I'm free to try everything. Everything is here for me to experiment with, basically.
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%. I know that if I lived anywhere else in the world, I wouldn't be the person that I was, because I was exposed to so much of it at a very, very, very early age. Like I had an agent when I was 9. And so I grew up with like my grandma taking me to auditions in the city and having to leave school early and like looking through backstage and casting calls and like taking the subway to like go see plays and stuff. I don't know where you could do that if not here.
So they really embraced your wanting to be an actor.
Oh, 100%.
That's awesome.
I'd be nothing if it wasn't for my family supporting me. My sister's my manager.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What actors called out to you when you were a kid? Like, was there someone that you were like, that is the reason that I want to do this? Or was it just you loved watching movies, you loved going to plays, and you're like, I want to be a part of this form of expression?
All of the above, but I think it was Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi, hands down.
She is the embodiment of what I was saying earlier of being a pure entertainer. Because what I love about Whoopi Goldberg is that no one knows exactly why they know who Whoopi Goldberg is. She has just like gotten to this place where it's like, yeah, she's just Whoopi. There's no label.
There's no label. There's no one like her. And what I respected so much about her growing up is that she was not a traditional beauty. She was not a traditional talent. She had dreadlocks. You know, I had locks since I was in high school. I don't have them now anymore. I remember just being like, here's somebody that is forming her own path. I remember her one-woman show and all the characters she played and how she created the space for herself, because no one was ever going to give her the role that showed her range, and she created that for herself. I also remember the movie, I think it was called The Associate, where she played a man, and she played a white man. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, Whoopi. Hell yeah. The first acting role I ever did was like in 7th grade, and I got to play Capulet. And I was like, I want to audition for Capulet. They're like, you're a woman. I was like, so was Whoopi. Period. And I did that
When you look back on it, the going out to auditions at 9 years old and kind of really entering that space at such a young age, are you happy that you did that at such a young age? Do you feel like that prepped you in all the right ways? Or do you kind of feel like, I guess thinking about like casting directors and like the need to impress, it feels like that can be an exciting thing, but also a detrimental thing to me. Like, how did you handle that at such a young age?
Well, I was mostly doing background stuff. So that was pretty easy. It was not like I wasn't up for Nickelodeon lead roles. I was not there. So it was very easy to just be happy to be a part of it and to get to just be like, oh, I'm interested in this thing. Back then they called it extras. You can't say extras anymore because it's rude. I remember waking up at like 5 a.m. to be on set, to be in the background of like a Julia Roberts movie and being like, I've never been more excited to wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. I've never been more excited. I love this. I love it. No regrets.
Can you still spot yourself in the background of the Julia Roberts movie and stuff like that?
I pretended for a while. I was like, there I go. I never was there. I am in a Blues Travelers video, though.
Okay, nice. And is that on your IMDb? Do you make sure to like...
Nah, that's not there. It didn't go that far back.
What would you say the first craft is that you pursued? And I guess there are so many answers that you can put here. Like I know that you had a t-shirt line, you said in high school. Mm-hmm. But I guess in a professional sense, like was there ever a point where there was a dividing line between artistic interests and traditional career paths? Did you have something like that? Like did you have a college major that wasn't focused on these things that you truly loved?
Yeah, I majored in psych and English in college, but I always knew that I was going to be doing exactly what I'm doing now. And I never felt like I had to choose. I just, in high school, literally, I've always been doing it all at the same time. So in high school, I did have my t-shirt line. I was also on MTV, Becoming Eve. That was my first time on TV. I was 15. And do you remember when MTV did that show Wannabe? And they would be like, are you a fan of somebody? And if you were a fan of anyone, you would come and you would perform their songs and they would choose you and you'd have to compete in person and they'd give you a makeover and they'd come to your hometown and like do this thing. And I was like, I want to be Eve because I like to rap and I like her. And then they put you on TV and they make you compete with 2 other contestants and you had to perform. And then they literally cut you down and I did not win, but I placed and it was great. So I did that when I was 15. I also was doing spoken word and I auditioned for the Apollo and I got chosen to be on the Apollo doing spoken word. And I was the captain of the dance team. Literally all of these things were happening at the same exact time. So whenever people go, what was the first or when did you? Yeah. I don't have a one. It's never been. I laughed so much in the beginning when you're like, it feels like you do the most. I have been doing the most my whole life. On my funeral tombstone and be like, Kerry was great. She did the most. The most.
What do you think the driving force of it all is? Like, what do you get out of entertaining? And I think it's interesting that the t-shirts that you're making in high school encompasses all of the connective tissue of it all, because this is something that took artistic skill. You have your own designs on it, but it also has a message and you're also making money.
Period. I was making so much money. I was cleaning up. Truly.
It feels like you also knew, these are things that you actually care about, but you also know that other people care enough about it and want to see this message on something that they wear. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like you are kind of filtering things around you, and you know how to package it into something hilarious, something poignant if it's spoken word, and something fashionable if it's a shirt.
Yeah, I don't think I ever thought about what other people wanted, though. Like, this is a recent thing where we have to think about like what the market wants and what type of content. But I've always just been driven by what I felt I needed to do to be happy. Otherwise, I felt like I would burst if I didn't get this out. If I didn't dance, if I didn't rap or sing or do whatever, it felt like I would literally die. And so it was just me trying to get it out of me. And then I'd be like, oh, people seem to resonate with this. But the people resonating with it was the after effect. It was never the thing that I went into it thinking. And then after, I was like, oh, if people with this, how do I make them pay me for it so I could keep doing it? Truly.
What is like the open mic period of all those things, though? Because I always think of it like I always tell myself I should run more, but I'm so intimidated by the act of walking outside and then taking a deep breath and saying, okay, this is the part where I start running. like that little moment, that's like the most awkward thing in the world to me, to like shift gears. Mm-hmm. So to suddenly decide I'm going to make a t-shirt, was there a nervousness you had about it, or it was just like pure energy? And I feel like spoken word is one where like I would be particularly nervous about. The silences, like the thing about comedy is that the laughter is like a consistent metronome that lets you know, like, okay, this is still going well. But with the silences of spoken word or storytelling, that makes me a little nervous. Like, how did you navigate that?
It's interesting because the older I am, the more self-conscious I am. When I was younger, I truly did not give a for better or worse, like bordering on like being obnoxious. Like, I was the girl where if my friends came over to my house to play, well, guess what? We're going to make a dance routine. I don't know what playing is. We're going to create something. I would make my mother or my sister set up the camcorder and we would record it and do something. And so I never really thought about how other people, I never thought how other people received it. I just knew I was in my bag. Like with poetry, I just felt it. I just felt it in my soul and I needed to say it. And then I would open my eyes and people would be clapping. And I'd be like, okay, I guess that went well. And there would be times where it felt good to me. No, I'm not going to lie. It usually, I never really bombed. So that's all. I think, I don't know. Now that we're comics, it trips me up a little bit because for the first time, I think I depend on people's opinions to like make my career. It's like you need people to think you're funny to continue to do this if you want to like sell tickets or if you want to get a special. And so now I'm like, oh my God, I gotta like care what people think. And now I care almost too much. I wish that I was that high school girl again that didn't give a because when you don't know better, you just do, you just feel.
Yeah. So it seems like you had this youthful excitement about all these different things that you were doing. And it makes me wonder if there was a point where you got serious about it all. Like, it sounds like, I mean, you were always serious about it, but...
I was about to say, I was always dead serious. Have you met me? I was dead serious the whole time. But I don't know where you're going with this question, Tim.
No, I need to chisel through this a little bit because I kind of refuse to believe that there wasn't like the Kerry now. Can you admit that the Kerry now is not the same Kerry from 10, 15 years ago?
Yes, I'm weaker now. True.
But okay, I'm
way more sensitive. I'm way more sensitive.
But maybe there's a good thing about being sensitive. There's a good thing that weak is not necessarily weakness, I don't think.
That's true.
But okay, let me try and center everything around the gravity of Whoopi Goldberg. I always think like if I were Whoopi Goldberg right now, or if I were Chris Rock right now, if I were or certain people on a certain level of entertainment, I would wake up and be like, thank God I'm already Whoopi Goldberg. Like, I don't have to go through the hustle, like, because I feel like there's a point where you kind of forget about all of the things that you did to get to a certain place. And I always imagine, like, okay, people who are like on a certain level, I hope that they wake up and go, thank God I'm already this. And I've kind of forgotten.
I don't know if they ever do.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know that there's anyone who thinks they've lived up to their full potential. I think that's the gift and the curse of being an artist. You look at Jay-Z, get up there and talk about Beyonce got every Grammy but the one. It's like, what the are you talking about? You sound crazy, sir. 29 Grammys, $1 billion, every history making. It's not enough. It's not enough. I'd like to hope that one day it'll be enough, but I'm not seeing. These people still want more.
Yeah, like anybody say it's enough. Yeah.
When is enough going to be enough?
Yeah, but can you admit, Kerry, that you were at a pretty nice plateau of sorts? Like you're in a like, aren't you happy that you're already at the place you are now, even though you know that there's more to go to?
I'm miserable. I'm miserable. But this is not the plan I had for myself.
I know, but you are doing so many awesome things. Like, as chaotic as all of the industry is, if there's anybody that I can think of who, a lot of people are like, oh, I guess I should fall back on stand-up, or I guess I should fall back on this. But I feel like with you, the other things don't feel like you're falling back on it because you have a proven record of being so good at those other things. Like, I can't imagine ever thinking of you falling back on stand-up, for instance, because you seem, this is from my outsider's perspective, to be doing everything that you do, firing on all cylinders. So I guess I'm just trying to chart how you started off as a human being who has faults to where you are now. Like, what were the struggles? What were the beasts along your hero's journey?
You come with the hard questions, David Letterman. I ain't signing for this. This is early on a Saturday. I'm sober. This is crazy. What? Introspection. Refocus me. Tell me again. What?
I'm just saying, I just find it hard to believe that, and I guess I should just take your word for it, that you have always had this incredible level of confidence. I guess I'm trying to get you to explain what some of the challenges were reaching this point that you're at now.
Oh. No, I'm really trying to be sincere. Hold on. I got to think about it. Because my mind doesn't necessarily work in that way. I don't think anything happens to me. I think everything happens for me. And so I don't think it has been easy, but I also think that I have barely scratched the surface. And for the last few years, I actually feel like I have hidden myself from the world and that I am not living up to my full potential. And so this is the year that I'm like, I'm going to put it all out there. And it's February and I barely put anything out there. So I guess I think the challenging thing has been, if there is a challenge, is having to feel like you have to prove yourself to other people. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm a student first and foremost. So anything that I'm doing, I'm studying it. I'm taking a class for it. I'm trying to understand. And with that, you have people who tell you this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way it looks. And I have been guilty of buying into some of that bullshit. Like, with stand-up, boy, you gotta stay on stage all day, every day, every single show, sleep, eat, stand up. But it's like, I don't believe in that. I believe that you can do stand up with boundaries. I believe that you can be choiceful with the shows you do. And that before you do a show, you should be very intentional about what you want to get out of the show. And what are you trying to work on? Are you trying to work on a specific bit? Is it a specific set? Are you working on your timing? Like, what is it that you want to get out of this? And I think that that's in the beginning years when you're just cutting your teeth. It's just, am I even funny? Do I know how to construct a joke? But after 10 years, I don't want to be just around on stage. I don't have time for that. I don't have time to just be, I know I'm funny. I got it. But what am I going to do with that? And how do I translate it into something that's meaningful? Otherwise, I'm just spinning, you know what I mean? And like, it's not enough to get on stage every day because you could just be practicing the same bad habits. And so you got to be intentional. And so for me, it's like trying to figure out like, what's my way to do it? I remember when I was so scared to do stand-up the first time because everybody was like, you're going to bomb. It's going to be horrible. And I have been fortunate in that I haven't taken a lot of L's in my life in that way, not in the performance. Yeah. Like I can remember like the times when I danced and it didn't go well and I hated that. I'm like, anytime I'm dancing, I'm the best dancer out here. I'm Michael Jackson. You can't f with me. And so like, when it came to doing stand-up, I was like, I'm nervous. But the very first time I went up, I did an hour, Tim. I did an hour.
The first time you went up, you did an hour? The very
first time I did stand-up, I did an hour. I still have the tape. Some of it is on YouTube. Some of those jokes still work today.
Wait, who booked you to do an hour the first time you ever did stand-up?
This is what I'm saying. My friend, she worked for HSBC Corporate. She is a lawyer, and she was in charge of the Black affinity group of the bank. And she was like, it's it wasn't Black History because it was in May. But she was like, we have a Black for the Caribbean group programming. They gave me $500 to book talent, and I believe in you. And I was like, $500? Okay. Yeah. And so like a week before the show, she was like, I'm just confirming this. I was like, okay, how much time do you want me to do? And she was like, I don't know, like 15 minutes. And I was like, oh, wow, that sounds like a lot. Okay. And I just procrastinated because I was so afraid. And I stayed up the night before. I got 24-hour energy. I got a bag of weed and I just started writing. And I stayed up all night. And then I memorized everything I wrote. And then I got up there. I invited my mom, my sister, my grandma, and I just performed. I remembered everything. And when I was done, I was up there for 58 minutes and I got a standing ovation and I crushed. And I could not believe it. And I was like, they told me that could never happen. And so I didn't do stand-up for another year after that because I was like, that had to be beginner's luck. I was like, I can't, that was perfect. Yeah. I did it. I don't want to touch it. That's good. And let me go back to improv with my group where we make it up on the fly.
Don't scroll away. You Are the Genre will be right back after the break. You Are the Genre is an independently produced podcast, meaning this is just something I do with my free time for some reason. But I do it with a purpose because I think there's a lot of valuable information coming out of these episodes. And again, I appreciate everyone who has supported the podcast by liking it, subscribing to it, sharing it with your friends. There's also a newsletter component to the podcast where you get updates on things that I'm doing. And if you upgrade to a paid subscription to the newsletter, you can listen to even newer episodes a week ahead of everyone else. That means you get the inside scoop on how other people are the genre before the rest of the world. I typically use this space in the middle of the episode to promote things that I've been enjoying. One of them is a project by previous guest on the podcast, James III. We met while staffed as writers on the recent revival of Nickelodeon's All That. And he has this cool thing right now, which is basically his own comic book company called Rule of Three Inc. And one of the premier projects from Rule of Three is this really personal, sort of sci-fi, sort of horror comic called Junior. But even though it's personal and surreal, it's layered with comedy in a way that instantly reminded me of Mad Magazine. There's a natural, steady flow of jokes and character development that moves along with the story, but you can also linger on each panel and page to discover something entirely new and hilarious. I think everyone should order that first issue of the comic and support his Kickstarter to make issues 2 through 5 of the comic available for everyone. So for more information on the Kickstarter, his Junior comics, and everything that has to do with James III, visit ruleof3inc.com. The 3 is the number 3, not the word. Another past guest of You Are the Genre, the great comedy writer and interviewer, Mike Sachs, is re-releasing his book of interviews called And Here's the Kicker. This book was so important for me when it came out because I had no idea what it took to be an actual working writer or comedy writer. And it still has some of the most valuable information out there. For information on that, visit MikeSachs.com. And again, consider signing up for my newsletter. Get all of the information you need at youarethegenre.com. Now, back to the episode. Where were we? It feels like you know how to ride the specific wave of adrenaline that pops up when you're on stage. And I feel like throughout this conversation, you've described this sense of kind of losing yourself in the performance and then opening your eyes and like seeing the applause. I wonder if you can describe how it feels to go on stage, and where do you think that comes from? This like ability to kind of just like embody what you are trying to say. I've talked to other people about how I'm definitely one of those comedians that people see perform and all they say is, that's a good writer. I'm not a good performer. But I can see when you do stand up, there is a level of focus and intensity and kind of a look of like, I dare you not to laugh. that you have.
Brooklyn, you see? That's the Brooklyn, I guess. I will shoot you. If I don't kill tonight, you will die.
Yeah, I guess like in what ways did you have to like build up this armor of specific Brooklyn confidence?
I'm going to give that all to my family and like my grandmother and how I was raised. There was nothing that they told me I couldn't do. There was like, I just thought I could do it. If I could think it, then I could do it. I don't know if that makes sense. So like when I'm on stage, it literally feels like I'm outside myself, watching myself. Even when I write jokes, if I'm working on a new act or something, literally I'll just close my eyes and I'll just keep writing. And it feels like I'm outside of it feels like I'm watching myself on stage, saying the things I want to say. And my hands are just moving. It doesn't feel like something I'm even conscious of in that way. I don't know how to explain it. It's God, I guess.
Do you get the same feeling when you dance?
Oh, yeah.
I have a specific fear of, I don't really dance because I like the letting go of it kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Try it. You don't just dance like in your room?
Yeah, I'll dance alone. Yeah, in my room. Yeah.
But how does that feel?
That feels all right. Yeah, but then I think like, is it insane to be doing this alone? But then I also think it's weird to be doing it in public to me for some reason too.
I think we spend so much time in our heads.
Yeah.
And the older we get, and social media does not help, the more we are, this is an interesting thing. I think because of social media, for me anyway, I have started to, and I have to reverse it now, but I have started to look at myself through other people's eyes.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what will it look like to other people? That's the wrong place for me personally to be. When I'm at my purest self, I'm looking, this sounds crazy. I'm the audience. I'm looking at me.
But through your eyes, and because you're describing how. Yeah, because my assumption when you were describing it earlier was that this vision that you have of yourself outside of your body is the audience's vision, but it's actually your vision, your vision of yourself outside of your body is what you're focused on when you're performing and when.
Yes, I didn't realize that, but that's what it is. I think if I stop for a second and put myself in the audience, then I'm so self-conscious. And I don't know the audience. I don't know these people's lived experiences. I can't possibly try to filter what I'm doing through other people's lens. And so that is where you become self-conscious. What will people think of me? Will they think I'm weird? Is it weird to be dancing for myself? But if I'm imagining myself looking at myself, I'm like, it up, bitch. You can do it. Yeah. Like, that's what I want to see.
Yeah. So now you're making me wonder if I have the opposite of that. I think that because I have a lot of paranoia about perception. And I think that's because my outward vision is of others. And I only feel a certain piece when I'm alone because it's like a bunch of cameras aren't facing me anymore, which probably sounds like an ego problem, but I don't feel it in that sort of way. It's just sort of like, I feel like I have to perform a bit when I'm around others, but I can be myself. Maybe even dance, Kerry, when I'm alone. How do you feel about these new things that are emerging with social media? Like a lot of people are talking about the clips and things like that. I feel like having to do these extra steps of captioning your own clips and stuff also brings on like a new layer of potential insecurity for comedians, where it's like, not only am I watching this clip of myself and listening to my voice, I'm also transcribing it and putting these letters on the video and posting it and finding a good caption and all these things. Like, is that challenging to you, or are you kind of embracing this new mode of things?
I'm learning to embrace it because I'm not inherently a social media person. If it weren't for this, I can imagine a world where I would not be on it at all. But now that I am embracing it, I'm real, because you have to. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to.
Yeah.
So let me scratch it. You don't have to do shit. However, if you want to be successful, and there's so many different ways. So you also don't even have to do it to be successful.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about comedy is that, and that's probably true about most things in life. There's not one way to do it. There's so many different ways that you can go about doing it. But to answer your question, I think that the clips and the captions and all of that makes me, can't speak for anybody else, makes me a better stand-up, because you got to listen to yourself. And so if you can't listen to yourself, why would anybody else want to listen to you? And then the second thing is you realize all of the bad habits that you have and all of the bullshit that you're saying or not saying. Because when you have to put the captions on it, you're like, damn, I say like and right, and you know what I mean? In this 30-second clip, I done said like right, and 15 times. That can't be the way this is supposed to be going. And so it forces me to like use an economy of words and just to be tighter and put it out there, see what people like.
When you were writing for Flatbush Misdemeanors and acting in Flatbush Misdemeanors, it feels like that can parallel this sort of social media thing we're talking about. Were you able to separate yourself from the character when you're writing the character? Or are you able to separate yourself from the character that you're playing on screen?
Yeah. When I'm a writer, I'm serving the character and serving the story. And that is my job. I don't often know. The room that I'm in now, I also have a role on it. I didn't ask for it. The showrunner was like, "Are you going to play this lady?" So every time they pitch jokes for this lady or pitch a story, it's a drama. I don't know why I said jokes, but every time they pitch for this lady, they start looking at me, and I'm like, I don't know why y'all looking at me. This lady is not me. I'm gonna play her, but she not me. Stop looking at me. So I just try to I try to be present and be in the moment and live up to the task at hand. And if it's writing, it's writing. And then when it comes to performing, then I'm just reading the text and I'm just going to bring that to it. But I try not to be like, oh, I'm good at acting this, so let me backfill it and try to force the room to write this for my character. I try never to do that. But maybe I should. I don't know. That's probably the wrong move.
Yeah, you got to put on your business hat then.
Yeah, maybe. No one knows what they're doing, Tim. We're all making the shit up.
So you're working in the drama space now, which feels like, of the infinite hats that you have, is is a very interesting one. But it feels like, writing for a drama is similar to you doing spoken word, like earnest spoken word and rap, before you transitioned into comedy and things like that. Is it difficult? Like when you're writing for a drama show and that same night you're performing stand-up, is it hard to ease out of those two modes?
No, I don't think that these things are as separate as they would have liked us to believe. I think that the way that the industry approaches this is very binary, and life is not like that. It's like these boxes they put us in. I got this drama job with my comedy sample. I didn't write no 1 hour. I'm like, I know story and I know people. And I've lived a million lives. And that's all you need. They all come from the same place. And that's why I say it always starts with the story. All stories, beginning, middle, and end, inciting incidents, like they all have the same core thing. And whether or not you pepper it with a punchline on every third line, or you write some real poignant, it's all comes from the same place. And my comedy is dark. So
Yeah. And I love these seemingly new genres that are emerging. Like Atlanta feels like one of them, The Bear, Succession, where when it comes to the awards, it's like it's nominated for both a drama and a comedy because it does kind of reflect life in a more honest way. And no one knows how to deal with that. That's always like a big headline about it, but it feels like this is actually us in the arts embracing reality in a way that we typically don't.
yes and no. Yes and yes ending you. Yes and no, only because the way that they determine genre in our industry is ridiculous. It is simply based on the length of time of the program. If it's 30 minutes, they go comedy. The Bear's not a comedy. It's not a comedy. It's not a comedy. I don't care what you tell me. It's not a comedy.
Dark comedy? No.
No, there's nothing. It's not a. I love The Bear, but purely because it's 30 minutes, they go as a comedy because think about it. There are no 1 hour comedy shows, right? Yeah. Succession, that's a comedy. Yeah. It's a comedy. Succession is a comedy, but because it's 1 hour, they're like, nope, that's drama. It's like, are y'all watching this? What are we talking about? I'm dying. Yeah, so that's why I say yes and no. It's like we are able to think differently about it, but we're not, it's arbitrary. It's literally based on the length of time, and that seems wrong. It seems like there should be 30-hour dramas, and there should also be hour-long comedies if that's what we want, but we're not there.
Yeah, we don't know how to... Sense. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the course of culture right now is about breaking down labels and things like that. And so it just feels like we're in a level of discussion about so many things that no one knows, heads or tails of it all. But it feels like with the career that you've charted, you do have this centered energy about it all, where it feels like a Kerry drama has the Kerry stamp on it. A Kerry comedy has the Kerry stamp on it. Like I can see even in your comedy, a different tone will make a joke sound like a dramatic story, of the things that I've seen, your clips, like a different version of this exists. And it's all just your body language and tone shifts everything completely. Yeah. I don't really have a question there. I just feel like,
you're doing so well.
I feel like you embody, and I talk about words that people keep repeating. Embody is one for this episode, but you represent everything that this show is about in a number of ways. So there's not many questions. But I suppose the last major thing, what advice can you give people to navigate all the things that they want to do? Is there a central thing that helps you out, or things that you do on a regular basis to keep yourself centered?
Yeah. I have a lot of routines.
It feels like you have to.
Yes, and a lot of it is new. A lot of it has really been cemented during the pandemic, and the pandemic completely changed me in so many ways. So I love the pandemic. Yo, if we could have just one more pandemic, that's my advice. Everybody start sneezing on everybody. Don't get boosted so that we can get locked down one more time for good measure so I could really self-actualize. But on a serious note, I meditate every morning. I practice gratitude. So I have a gratitude journal where every day I write the things that I'm grateful for. I work out. So I like to do yoga. I do a lot of stuff to be active. And I just like to, I don't know. I think you got to really just focus on what you can control. And a lot of the things that we see every single day, it's a lot of doom and despair. There's a lot of things that make us feel like we are hopeless and like somebody else is controlling our lives. And, we can't live where we want to live. We won't make the money we want to make, as well as other stuff. But I choose to focus on what I can control and be grateful for the things that I do have and not focus on the things that I don't have. And I think because of that, I'm able to multiply the things that I do have. Like, all right, this is what I got. How do I make more of this? Like even during the strike, boy, we went on strike and I got unemployment. Thank God. But it ran out. It ran out. And I was like, great, what are we going to do now? And it was like, what can you do? And I'm a creator. And so the only thing I could do is think about things that I could create and just focus on that instead of waiting for somebody to give me a job or hire me for something else. It's just like focus on what you can do. And if we're creators, we write our own destiny. And I love the freedom of that. That keeps me centered.
You mentioned the pandemic and lockdown and that kind of thing. And it made me wonder, because earlier you said that you feel like you've kind of been, I forget the way you phrased it, but like
hiding myself from the world.
Hiding yourself from the world. Yeah. Do you feel like that is because of the pandemic primarily?
I mean, that's a good question. I think the pandemic probably has a lot. The pandemic and just me change. I feel like I'm changing. The way I look at life is changing. My perspective on things have changed. I spent so much of my life talking that I just stopped doing all the that I'm known for and that I've done in the pandemic. And I started listening and just taking in more things and figuring out like, what do I want to say? And how do I contribute to this world in a meaningful way and not just take up space because I love to hear my voice?
Do you feel like you're at the end of that process now? Like you're ready to reemerge? And what do you think some of the key things that you've focused on are?
I think I am ready to reemerge with boundaries though. Like I don't know that I'm ever going to go back to things the same exact way. Like even with stand-up now, I don't do shows on Sundays. Sunday is my family day and my house day and the day that I prep for the week. And also, we define ourselves so much, especially in America, by the titles and the things that we do. You meet somebody, the first thing they do is, what's your name, Kerry? Oh, what do you do? It's like, damn, mind your business. What if I don't have no job? Then am I worthless? And so it's just learning to not attach my identity with my job and my career. Like I'm so much more than a writer, dancer, actor. Like those things no longer define me in the way that they once did. And so now that I am reemerging, I'm just trying to make sure that I have a healthy balance and knowing that I love the things that I do. But if all the went away like it did in the pandemic, I should still be able to I shouldn't be thrown into depression.
Yeah.
At least not for me. That was not healthy for me. I had to find other things to do and to be.
You mentioned earlier that you feel like you've just discovered how much of a through line writing is to everything that you've done your entire life. Is that something that through the pandemic popped out to you?
Yeah, through the pandemic, but also I'm working on my one-woman show that I've wanted to write my whole life and didn't know exactly what it was going to be. And one day during the pandemic, I just got up out of bed at 3 a.m. and I had an epiphany. I had a dream and I just woke up and I just started writing furiously. And I was like, this is my show. And I wrote the whole show. And it was about the most critical time of my life, which is my school. In high school and elementary school. I went to 4 different high schools. My whole school scholastic journey is a whole other show. So, but I went to my mom's house and I went into my old bedroom and I pulled out all of my old stuff. And then I found hundreds of poems and raps and essays and journal entries. And I was like, girl, you just been writing your way through life the whole time. Everything that I was going through, everything I tried to lie. I was like, no, I was well-adjusted. No, I was an angry child. And I read the things I wrote. I was like, okay. Yeah. And so it has always been there.
Okay. So, I feel like in this conversation, I've been trying to get this epiphany out of you.
Is it? How? You're not asking the right questions.
I know, but that whole it was a point where I was trying to chisel through this thing where it was there's no way that it was this pure. I mean, it was pure momentum, pure joy, and all the things that you did. But this revelation that you had anger in these things that you were writing in your childhood and things like that. In what way was anger fueling the arts?
My shirt said "F the police." Of course I was angry. We covered everything started with It's not coming from the most joyous place.
Yeah. But it's like for dance and things, do you feel like anger has a role to play in just you going on stage and in your poetry? And
not for dance. Dance is pure joy. Dance is pure joy. But maybe if I was having a bad day, I would listen to music and leave it out on the dance floor. But definitely for poetry. For my poetry, I was like a young activist, capitalism, Babylon system, Def Jam. It was like, I read some of the stuff. I was like, girl, you was 16. Why are you upset about... I'm like, this capitalist society keeping us in chains and brains and lanes. It's like, what is... Now, like, go play. Go and play. It's hardcore. It's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, because I feel like there's a question of like, how do you feel about the first pursuit? And I guess we can ask that about like, how do you feel about those emotions that you had in your youth? Like,
I feel like they're still here in my, they're still there.
They're still there. I mean, if you just expand a bit about like that discovery, finding those notes and these little things that you were writing, like how did it feel to read portraits of your past in a sense? Like these little time capsules.
Well, now that I'm an adult, you know, when you're a kid, you think you're grown. So you don't realize how young you are. And now that I'm an adult and I look back and I'm like, you were dealing with some shit as a small child. And I guess I'm grateful because it's the same way like this. If I knew what I knew now about stand-up, that I was going to have to do an hour or even 15. If you ask me today to write a new 15, I'm going to be like, let me get back to you in 2-3 months when I perfect this. But when you don't know any better, you don't even have a chance to process the gravity of what it is you're dealing with or what you're asked to overcome and surmount. Like if I had a child that was 15 or 16 and they were dealing with the stuff that I was dealing with, I would be like so worried and so protective. And I would want to swoop in and try to save them from all of these things because, you know, I'm looking back as an adult now. But when I was a child, I was not aware of that. And so I was just coping the way that I knew how to cope, which was writing down and beating people up. And so now I just slid that right on by you. And so I'm grateful. I look back and my heart does break a little bit for that child, but I wouldn't have it any other way because that child was able to take and turn it into sunshine. And that is so much of who I am today.
You did slide that by me. And I
did. And mind your business. Keep your eyes on your own paper. See, this is what got you in trouble in the first place.
I just want to know what it feels like to beat someone up. I've never beat someone up. You know, I just want to know.
Really?
Yeah, I've never. No.
Have you ever been in a fight?
Yes, and I think not too many times. I've always been a non-violent kind of guy. I love that for you. Took all the lessons too seriously. All the church lessons, all the Martin Luther King speeches. A little too. But next time, you'll tell me what it feels like to beat someone up. I feel like, you know, it's a detailed
or just come to my one-woman show and I'm done. And then you get to understand. You go, oh, okay, that's what it looks like.
Big thanks for Kerry Coddett for joining me on the show. For more information about her, visit kerrycoddett.com. Freddie Nunez created and sings the You Are the Genre theme song, and Adam Smith produced it. Next episode, screenwriter Jordan Van Dyna joins me on the podcast. But if you become a paid subscriber to the newsletter, you can listen to it a week ahead of the normies. This is Tim Barnes signing off with your weekly reminder that you are the genre.
First I got your voicemail, then I got you. We can meet in person or maybe on Zoom. So tell me what's your genre, tell me what do you do? I'd like to know the things that specifically